Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Garanto Expert Talk Get. This is a new initiative from Garanto to get expert advice on future of the jobs and skills. Today, we will explore and talk about shaping business using analytics and intelligence. I would like to request Dr. Sharanya to take it forward.
Thank you so much, Emily. A very, very good evening to everyone present here. I'm really excited to talk to all of you regarding some interesting details. So please join me in starting the event this evening. All right, so let me quickly share my screen. Right. So today we are going to talk about shaping business using analytics and intelligence. Right. So if you have come across anything like this, these are called dashboards, and they usually have a lot of information, relevant information. For example, this one is about some kind of a sales report where you can dynamically see details about different markets, the different products, the performance in different years, and the way the sales have happened through different channels. So in one visual, you can actually get many, many insights. But what you need to think about is the amount of data that goes behind it, right? So all this kind of dashboards you see here actually are backed up by a lot of data, right? You have huge volume of data that is sitting behind it, right? Usually what happens is when this data comes into any situation, you have to go through some kind of processing to get that kind of a beautiful dashboard. So it usually goes through a whole process of cleaning, transformation, and then finally it comes to a state where you can actually create beautiful dashboards and reports such that you can, of course, get some insights of it. Right? So what is the landscape of business today? Any organization, be it any market or any field, right? Any organization themselves, they produce a lot of data, large volumes of data. And this data is coming from various sources. So business can make good decision, better decision only by analyzing the data. Of course, this is going to lead to the enhancement of the business, a better growth of the business, etc. So this data needs to go through this process to get the actionable insight, if you could say. Right? Now, what about this data? If you notice, data has been exponentially increasing in volume since the last decade, or even more than that, right? Why? In fact, since the time of the dawn of internet, that's when data started actually booming in volume, right? So if you see this graph, there's a exponential growth from the year 2010, right, up to now, and you see that it's gone up so much. Right, there are two reasons. One is, of course, the amount of devices and the amount of applications that are going to collect this data has increased. That's one part of it. Right? If you think of the other way, the storage capability is also increased. Gone are the days when it was very expensive to buy a very, very small amount of storage. Till now, where you can have big data store for very, very little amount. Right? So the storage capability is actually increased as well. So this enables any market or any industry to actually invest on data. So they don't have to worry about the amount of cost that goes behind. The cost has actually gone down, right? So this is actually the reason why we have so much of data around us, and it's so easy to access them as well. Now, having data, we have data. Now, what are some of the problems that you might notice? So some of the problems that stop us from getting the insights immediately are, first, Okay, I told you that you get data from so many different sources. Now, these sources can't be directly used to get your insights. So that's your first, road bump or speed bump. That's your first hurdle. Next, it's again, like I said, it's coming from different sources. It's not going to be always clean. And then again, because it's coming from different sources, it needs to be integrated, it needs to be consolidated, and then only you can process it. It's going to be in different formats, different platforms, so many places it's going to come from. It needs to be consolidated and made standardized such that I can process it. And of course, this entire process needs to be automated. You can't have 10 people doing different steps within this process, such that at every step it needs to be monitored, it needs to be handled with care such that errors can be avoided. It's very hard, right? It's very hard to do it without an automation in place, because automation will actually help you monitor the entire process. So these are some of the problems that one might face when they are trying to find some insights from their data. So, what I'm trying to say here is, as a business person, right, business intelligence is really important. So, business intelligence, BI, okay, the person with BI actually needs to have, a multi faceted, she needs to wear different hats at different times. Okay, so this person, this business intelligence who has these skills, right, with the BI capabilities, will be able to bridge the gap between the tech and the business. So business intelligence is actually an amalgamation, right? It needs to be start from getting the right data. You should be able to analyze, not analyze yet. You need to organize your data, plan your data in the way, in the form of a warehouse or a database, such that you can go to the next step. Then you can start to discover your data, look at it, visualize it, right? And then you can create dashboards that can be of self-service as well. So you create dashboards that you can publish, and it can be used by different departments. Of course, when I talk about data from different sources and planning to organize your data, it also includes the integration of data and governing the entire thing, looking at it in a bird's eye view and trying to monitor the entire system such that it flows flawlessly. When the data enters, goes through the process, and then finally comes out as your result. So this entire process needs a governance as well. So that is business intelligence. Now, when I talk about business intelligence, and the first thing I said was managing your data. You need to know how to handle your data, how to organize it, how to store them correctly, such that it can be retrieved easily. So that is the first part of what the entire process of business intelligence is. So that is the data management. So data management itself, if you see this image here, it has actually evolved a lot, right? From the time things were just stored as flat files, right? They were just flat files, they were stored in some kind of a relational database. And then it moved on to later when it was entity relationship models, a different kind of modeling technique where you kind of create these relationships between different tables, different data. Then we started to looking at about having data within data warehouse, data marts. So these are different storage capabilities that improved. Then it also moved into the next level of web and unstructured content. So we started having a lot of unstructured content like videos, audios, tweets, etc. Right? So this kind of data was also part of what we were looking at. And finally, we are at the state where it's big data. Big data, not only because of the size, because of the volume and the flow, the speed at which we keep getting this data. You see, if you imagine the different apps around it, right? Even as a household, right? If you're sitting inside a house, you have a smart TV, you have a smartwatch, you have your laptop, you have at least 2 cell phones at home, right? Mobile phones at home. And then you have your, these days, you have your weighing scales collecting data, you have your washing machines and refrigerators collecting data. So data is all around us and it's coming in very, very fast pace. Like if it's getting stored somewhere, it is very, very huge and very quickly it keeps flowing. So this flow needs to be handled. So you should be ready to handle this inflow of data. So that is where we are. This is the big data part of it, right? So this leads us to also be evolved, okay, with this right skills to handle them. So initially, when it was just flat files, you didn't need too many skills, right? You just needed to know how to handle the data that within an Excel file or some kind of a CSV file. That's it. And then later, it slowly will build up, trying to visualize it dynamically and create these dashboards, right? And then moving on, we actually started looking at more data from, like I said, like different applications and different processes, right? So actually, the different tools evolved as well as and when the business intelligence also improved. So initially, the tools, like I said, it was only very minimal tools, and people were just starting to embrace data science. They were, it was more about looking at previous data, trying to answer only questions like, okay, what has happened and why it has happened, right? So there was only explanation on the existing data. That's all the skills that was there. And of course, very basics of the processing also. It was like only on Excel, or maybe maximum it would go on SAS. But moving now, so if you look at what is happening now, we are starting to look at predictive kind of modeling. So we want to look at the data and try to predict for the future. So right from getting up in the morning, you want to check your weather, or you want to check the traffic on the road. It's all predictive, right? It talks you. If even I try to book a Grab, or I try to use an app to tell me what is the traffic situation at 1 in the afternoon. So it's all predictive, right? So predictive, they started with the on set of programming languages like Python and R came up, where that was more robust to answer these questions. And even visualization. So visualization as well started bringing tools like Tableau, ClickView, which I will be talking to you about in a minute or so. So that is where we are right now. But where are we headed to? Right? Where are we headed to? We are going towards the state where there is a lot of research and development on talking about automation, real-time data, embedded data. So all these are big data and handling it. So more into automation is what we are looking into. So this is the evolution of business intelligence. So how are organizations benefiting out of this? Number one, they can target new clients, new markets, new demographics, because they get that insight from the BI. When they get the insight, okay, this is what is happening, they can approach different market. Maybe that's what they are, something lacking in their existing process. They'll know that, okay, oh, this BI is talking to me about, okay, maybe I should start venturing into the the European market, or things like that. Of course, you will increase your customers as well, increase business, increase customers. And then finally, you will help make the right decisions, because gone are the days where intuitively some of the decisions were made. So these decisions are backed up by data. When you are backed up by data, you can make these decisions with more confidence. So there's actually decision analysis as well, part of PI, which will actually tell you how good your each decision, suppose you have 5 decisions, you could make how good each of them, what are the impacts of it. All this can also be analyzed, right? So these are some of the key advantages of having this BI, the skills that are required for BI. So when I spoke to you initially, so I said first you need to know to handle data. So ultimately, why do we need all this? Ultimately, we need to create these reports, right? Communicate it right, show it to people such that based on what they see, they can make some decisions. So the main aspect of BI at the final product is visualization. So this is actually a Gartner chart that talks to you about the key players or the key players in the market who provide tools for visualization. So if you see here, you have the leaders in this grid here, which is Microsoft, Tableau, and Click. So these are the key players in visualization. So most of the companies these days, they would probably use one of these tools, if not all of them. Okay. And of course, there are so many, many more. The niche market has the MicroStrategy, which is also a very interesting tool, which is used to visualize. So these are tools that are available. Many tools are available. So depending on your budget, depending on your needs, depending on the outcome you want, you could choose different tools. Right? Let me show you a few dashboards that were created by the different players on the screen right here. And this is just a few of them. So this is actually a real dashboard created by Tableau. So this is actually a KPI dashboard, which again is very insightful, has different sorts of graphs. It talks about, there are bar graphs, there's where demographic graphs, bubble charts, etc. So this actually is a very insightful graph. And of course, this is as well dynamic. Okay, let's look at another dashboard created by Power BI. Okay, this is another dashboard, again, real time and interactive. So you click on each elements in every chart, it will impact all the charts around it. So it's actually very, very interesting and very insightful as well. So even when you are in a business meeting and you've been suddenly asked questions, so you're prepared to talk about certain things, and suddenly there are some questions asked about, okay, what happened in that market on a specific date? You can actually drill down and show the exact results for those specific dates. So this is actually a very, very interesting dashboard. And the best part is you can also publish it and share it. And, it could also be very, like I said, when you share it, people can use it for themselves. They don't need you as a person to go and explain it. They can get their insights on their own once it's out in the, in the official site, or, where they can all access it. Right, let's look at another dashboard here. Okay, this one is actually created by MicroStrategy. Okay, this predominantly they all are similar, right? But they, of course, each of it has its own kind of the user interface, the way they're created. Some of them are easier than the other. Like, for example, if you are very comfortable with Microsoft product, Power BI could be something very simple. It's all by clicks, drags and drops, etc. So each tool is very different from each other, but very similar in a lot of ways. Right? The way you do it, a little bit of learning for each of them will actually help you do it. So this is again a dashboard. Okay, wasn't looking as nice as the previous ones, but it's still very, very robust, and it does give a lot of information. And this is another dashboard created by ClickSense. Okay, again, this looks very similar to what we saw in Power BI. So ClickSense, ClickView, these are some of the commonly used tools as well in different companies. So again, this also looks and feels quite interesting, where you can it's dynamic again. You can click on any of your charts, and the rest of the charts actually change according to what you click. So you can get insights instantly. Okay, Let's look at some of the leading companies that use some of these BI tools. Like if you say Power BI, Walmart, Apple, 3M, 7-Eleven. So these are some of the big brands, right, that use these tools I'm talking to you about to visualize their data. Okay, so if if you're wondering which tool to use, you see these companies, top companies are using some of these tools. So they are all really, really good. So let me share with you some of a few companies and their use cases and how BI help them handle certain situations. Okay, let's talk about the first company is the Amex, American Express. So they use BI a lot, and so they actually created a new payment service and product, and they keep doing that all the time with this BI intelligence and their insight. So what happened was they had this one situation where in Australia they were able to identify that about 24% of all Australian users were about to close their account in next 4 months. Within 4 months, they were foreseeing 24% of all the Australian users were to close their accounts. So because of this information, what they started doing was they started taking steps to retain these customers. They identify these customers, saw what was the problem, and tried to solve these problems and retain these customers. So BI was actually able to help them retain customers, if not churn more, right? And the other thing this BI really helped with them was to detect fraud. So if there were any fraudulent messages or they had any fraudulent transactions, they were able to easily find that out and protect the customers, right, whose cards might be compromised or stolen, etc. So this was very, very useful for American. I'm sure they have like so many more insights, but the use cases, sorry. So this was one of very interesting use case. Another industry, which I'm sure everyone is ready to go and binge watch for this long weekend that we are going ahead to, is Netflix. So Netflix uses a lot of this data in so many ways, right? So one thing everyone would have noticed is when you're watching something, they start giving you recommendations, saying maybe you should start watching this next. Based on your view, these are some of the recommendations. So these recommendations, how are they made, right? These are nothing but the result of business intelligence, right? And and the other thing was there are actually many use cases with Netflix, right? The way they brought the skip intro and next episode button, that itself, that came in with a lot of research that went behind it, right? When they found that people were not watching the entire content, they try to understand why people are not watching the entire content, because they were giving ratings based on how much content was watched. So always they benchmarked it to 100%. So all these were analyzed, and then the ultimate decisions were made and actions were made. So you see these uh, very, very useful icons, right? The other industry where a lot of people literally live for their coffee in the morning. Okay, so if you are a regular Starbucks customer, you will notice that you have a loyalty card. You have this loyalty card program. So this is nothing but their way of taking your information. Okay, not to sell you information or anything, taking your information for actually benefiting you. Now, using this information, they can predict. Okay, they can predict and know what a particular customer likes or what are their preference, and they give like the specific deals and offers for those customers. So this actually retains existing customers. Suppose you have existing customers, you can keep calling them, keep giving them these deals, and they will want to go back to Starbucks to buy something. So this is their way of keep bringing their customers back to them over and over again. So these are some of the use cases that BI helped, these big brands to actually improve their business. So, like I said way in the beginning, right? When you create these dashboards, there is a lot of data that goes behind it. This data needs to be part of a pipeline. So you can't just, like I said, you can't just wait for data to come to you and then, try to create them. Because like I said, data now is coming in full bang, full force and full speed. And it's heading to you like a meteor. Now, this data needs to be handled. And the way you handle the data is putting it through a pipeline. Now, what is this pipeline? So let me show you. So data pipeline is nothing but a series of steps that take the raw data, which is like absolutely raw data. There's nothing you can do with it. Take this raw data from a source, can be one source to many. From these sources, move it, transform it, right? It could, the source can be your day-to-day. If it's a company, it could be the day-to-day database, like a transactional database. And then transform it, make these changes and push it into a data warehouse. So data warehouse is going to be like this one spot destination for a lot of these processed data. And it's going to sit there such that whenever it is needed for analysis, it can be taken from there. And it's the one true source of data where it's going to be formatted, it should be in the right standardized way, it should be consistent, it should be clean, have the right naming formats. All this is going to be inside a data warehouse, such that from there, any user can take it to create their reports, create their visualization, whatever. So this is the entire step. This is data pipeline. And this is very important for business to, business intelligence, to have this process in place. Okay. Now let's look at some of the problems you might face when you don't have a data pipeline. So first of all, it's very difficult to fetch like even small insights from raw data. Like I said, raw data is like crude oil. It's not much of a value. It needs to go through processing. It needs to go through refinement. So this cannot happen if you don't have a pipeline set, right? Okay, now even if you manage to fetch the data from different sources, you have to manually consolidate it, integrate it, put it into the Excel sheet for analysis. And this can lead to many errors. You could face errors. And of course, if it's going to come in different formats from different sources, and it's going to be quite complex to look through all of it manually. So that is the next step. Okay. Imagine this is just for one data. Imagine this is real time. And the amount of data, the streaming of data is going to happen very, very fast. Now, the entire problem grows exponentially now. With just one data, it was hard. Imagine it's coming in full force. It's like opening up a tap and it's coming in full speed. It's hard without a process in place. Now, what is the importance of data pipeline? It helps you consolidate data from all sources, right? And of course, you can access it quickly. So from one side, the data is walking in, and from different sources, it's sitting in this big warehouse. And then it's very easy for everyone to actually use this data. The users can easily access this data. So all this is why a data pipeline is very important. Now, what is there in a data pipeline? Of course, number one is your source. It could be anything. Your source can be a database, flat file, cloud. It could be, a combination of all of these, right? The source can be anything. So you have the source. That's the first part of your data pipeline. Then it goes through the processing. It needs to be extracted, changed according to the needs of the business, right? And then it needs to be maybe cleaned, formatted. A lot of things can happen, grouping, aggregation. All these are some of the steps in transformation, right? It goes through this entire transformation. It's almost like the crude oil going through this refinement, right? All this happens, and then it's pushed into a big vat, right? That's your destination. That's where your data is going to sit till it's ready for someone wants to ask for that data, query the data, and look at some insights from it. So it's good. This is the major chunks or major elements of a data pipeline. So this is again an image of a data pipeline. So data pipelines, like basically they enable organization to efficiently transform the data to make it ready for analytics. So once they set this, it will run continuously. So even if you have a bring new set of data, you have fresh set of data, you're going to add it, you can always use this pipeline to make these minor changes. A new source is added, can be done. Ultimately, the entire process will keep going on and on. You don't have to keep doing it again. You don't need to do it manually. Okay. So this data pipeline ensures that there is a smooth transition from the source till it reaches the destination. So this entire transition is what data pipeline is all about. And this is very key. Now, why is this important? How is this useful and benefits businesses? So for example, okay, first thing is faster access to data. So suppose you have to analyze sales data, from a particular customer segment. Okay, there must be some kind of an automated process that is going to extract data from databases and perform some kind of adjustments, and it feeds it into a sales application. Now, with a data legacy data, if earlier, if you didn't have this kind of a pipeline, if you don't have a pipeline, what would you do? As an analyst, you have to wait for IT to set up this entire process, right? So when you wait for the IT to do it, by then you might have missed it. You might have missed an opportunity. But this modern data pipeline can enable you as a person, right? All you need to do is set the right tools in place, right? All you need to do is know the tools. That's it. Right? You don't need an IT expert to do it. These are as simple. Everyone can learn these tools. That's the benefit of it. And then, this is what I say by faster access. You can access it yourself. You don't need to depend on an IT professional to do it. The next thing is real-time data, right? Now there's, if they're going to be, if there's no access to data, right? If it's not going to happen like instantaneously at the same time. So for example, if you have few people accessing the same data, first of all, it's going to slow down the entire system. Right? If so many people are going to access that same data, it's going to slow down. So modern days, these days, the data pipelines can use cloud, right, to use this as a solution. So this actually, the cloud, enables people to get the data immediately, right? Immediately. And even if there are many people trying to access the data, it doesn't slow down the process. So you get real-time data. The next thing is about agility to meet peaks in demand. So anyone who needs this, the data should be available. So it's almost like instantly. It's very similar to the cloud example I gave, right? The data sitting in these kind of databases, data warehouses, they can provide immediate data to different kind of tools. Suppose you have something else, and downline the pipeline where it's going to go through some analysis. This can actually move there without any hiccups. Okay, that's the entire benefit of this pipeline. So there are tools. What tools you choose and what kind of tools you're going to use are the decisions you need to make. But once you make that decision, have these tools in place, things are going to be in order and things are going to flow very smoothly. Now, these are some of the major players of data pipeline. If you see here, the leaders are actually, sorry. Okay, so you have, data bricks, right? And, so many of Snowflake, Databricks. So all these are some of the tools you're going to look at. They have Teradata, Oracle, Microsoft Azure. Okay, all these are some of the leaders. And then, of course, you also have Informatica and Microsoft as well. They're all part of SAP, Oracle. All these are actually leaders in this kind, the players in data pipeline. Like I said, data pipeline is amalgamation of different tools you're putting in the right place. So all these are the tools that are available, but you can choose what to use based on your needs, based on the company's needs and the budget, etc. Right? So all this, again, everything you see here is again backed up by massive amount of data, huge data in the background. Now, so much large data that we need to start thinking about it as your big data. Now, big data is going to contain all sorts of data. It could be structured, which is nothing but table format, right? Rows and columns. It could be unstructured. Unstructured are like videos and audio files, etc. Or it could be tweets and things like that. So all these variety of sources, so many different sources of data. If you look at this, there's like so many apps, just a few that's mentioned here, that's going to pull this information all the time, every minute of the day. There's huge generation leading. Now you need to start thinking about big data. Now, big data, like I said, it's usually people talk about big data and they'll start about the 5 V's of big data. There's like volume. You have volume, variety, velocity of data that of course has grown by the past few years. Now this volume of data has opened up these opportunities to use predictive analysis and real-time reporting. Right? So these are some of the features of trying to use big data. So that's actually driven people towards this kind of analytics, predictive, prescriptive, real time. All these kind of analytics have actually boomed up because of adoption of big data. Now, if you look at the big data landscape, okay, you see so many leaders here. So if you look at the technology part of it, they have Hadoop, MapReduce, Cassandra. For visualization, of course, you have Tableau, Power BI, etc. Of course. So if you see the entire landscape here, you have a set of tools for log data apps, vertical apps, the BI apps, right? Infrastructure services. So all these put together make up the big data landscape. So it is not just one tool, right? You need different aspects of this put together to create this kind of a landscape. So when you start to think about big data, so these are the major data players. Spark, Hadoop, Hive, Kafka, they're naming some of them. They are the major players that have developed ways to handle this kind of big data and efficiently use them. So these are some of the tools that are used to handle big data. Now, why do companies use big data? Of course, these are very common reasons. Of course, to make better business decision, because you're starting to predict the future. So you will also start to create some kind of prescriptive analysis, very similar to the Amex situation, right? So based on this kind of data, they made a prediction for future. And of course, you enhance your operations as well by doing this. And of course, you're going to create much smarter services, and your products are going to be much more relevant to your customers than ever. Right? So we saw some of the tools to visualize, some of the ways you can handle data, organize it by putting them in a pipeline. And now we are looking at how you can use big data and try to get insights out of it. So these are some of the companies that use big data. So these are all the top company, and there's so many more, right? Excuse me. Right. So let me show you some of the tools that we saw with big data. So if you take data bricks, which we will be seeing if you take up this course with Garanto, you can see how we can use data bricks and as a unified platform. So you can have your data source, you can handle it. Okay, even if it's a big data, how you can store it on data warehouse, and some of the applications as well can be integrated to actually create visuals and insights. Right? So this entire unified platform can be created using data bricks. Now, what are some of the advantages or benefits of Databricks, right? So storage, when you think about storage, it is virtual storage. So you can access this data anywhere. So it again, like, because it's virtual and it's an integrated workspace. So it streamlines processes, right? Because of that, it can actually collaborate and integrate. So you can actually collaborate with different environments, and you can streamline the entire process. And of course, data integration can be done on cloud as well, where of course it's going to be highly secure, reliable. And of course, when it's uh, in the cloud environment, and with the Spark backing up, it can offer many cloud managed services. So all this, because it's cloud based, there are some of the very useful aspects of Databricks. It's very useful to ease of use, and ease of actually access is much more in Databricks because of the cloud aspect of it. Okay, these are some of the big brands that use Databricks. Okay, so this is, though you didn't see it in the leader grid, Databricks is also quite relevant in this big data kind of a situation. So this, again, coming back to our dashboard where we began. So now you can actually get the feel, okay, you see such a dashboard, you can now actually know the pain or the processes that actually sit behind such a dashboard. It's not as simple as just throwing in the data and such thing is created. So now, after I spoke to you about the entire process that led to this kind of a dashboard, you can get, actually appreciate it much more and know that, okay, so these are the processes that are going behind it, and thus such a dashboard has been created. So typically, your learning journey would be like this. You would start to learn a little bit about the visualizing tools like Power BI, Tableau, and then MicroStrategy, Click. And then we will start looking at tools to handle data, like organizing it, databases, how to organize your data, creating the data pipeline. So tools like Informatica and Snowflake is where you're going to look at that. And then when you know these capabilities, you will start to look at big data, where you will be introduced to Spark and Databricks. So this entire learning journey will actually bring you into that space of getting the right tools and right skills as a BI expert, right? So these are what is totally necessary for the business analytics or business intelligence pipeline. And this is going to help you achieve the goal of bridging the gap between a tech and a business. So these are some of the path you should take if you want to be independent and bring out the right insights for your company and your needs as well. So with that, I wrap up today's session. I hope this was insightful and got you intrigued in these topics and these tools as well. So it is quite exciting to learn them, and it's quite interesting as well. And it gives you the feel of actually appreciating what you see at the end. Okay, so with that, thank you so much. And I hand it back to the admin of Garanto. Thank you. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Hi, I am Bhupati here.
Hi, yes, Bhupati.
Yeah, could you please share some of the links to get to know more details or to self-learning like ClickView or Tableau kind of things to understand data analytics or predictive analytics. So
Yes.
it will be very useful to us to know about. Okay.
Yeah. So actually, Garanto is offering this course where we walk you through this entire set of tools which I spoke to you about, each one of them. So we actually go through each of them. We talk to you about it, tell you how to install it. The entire process actually we go through. And like I said, the learning journey, all the tools you see in that learning journey is what you will see in the entire course.
Okay. What is the course name?
So I will hand the details about the course and everything will be handled by the Garanto team. So maybe Emily, you can take over and maybe give them more information about the course.
Yes.
Yes, please. Could
Sir,
you
I will
please
just
share
send.
on WhatsApp? That should be fine.
Yes, sir. I will just send you a message, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sharanya, Narayan here.
Yes, Narayan.
See, business. Okay, so there was like 10 years back, there was something called as business objects. And that's how I got introduced to business intelligence. And business objects was another tool. And then it obviously evolved into intelligence. But just wondering, I mean, outside of the dashboard creation, and the reporting aspect of things. What's the intelligence in this?
The intelligence is actually acting upon the insights. So basically, if you think about it, BI is not just the ultimate reporting. It includes the entire process as well. So if you look at the intelligence, if you take anything like SAP or anything, they start off with the entire thing about handling the data, processing it, and then querying it, being able to do all this, right? So being able to do all this is part of the intelligence.
And
Ultimately, of
the
course,
the BI people whom I have actually interacted with at least, and you have shown a complete cycle of how the intelligence is actually starting and kind of right, and everything is actually a ocean by itself. Data warehouse,
yes.
and then data handling, analytics is another different ocean.
Yeah.
And, Tableau and report generation is another ocean, and people who are dedicated to these kind of things, they don't know the other section of it. For example, a person who is actually an expert in data warehouse might not know, or rather most of the times he won't know the Tableau and the reporting features of things.
Correct.
And it's vice versa, right?
Correct.
So where do we go from here now? So yeah, so we have individual pockets where we are trying to connect the entire system, and yeah, we have reached till big data. So what's your expectation for next let's say 10 years or something? how do you think we are going to evolve from here on?
Okay, how we have to evolve is to know a bit of everything. You need not be, it's like jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing, right? You could be master of one, but you need to be a jack of all trades, because at some point, we're already there actually. At some point, we need to be independent of not expecting, because eventually, if things starts to split like how it is right now, things move in silo, and you have to wait for one team to come up with another, some information, and then you have to wait for another. So it's all in silo right now. So to integrate it, make it much faster, and get your insights much easier. And of course, your data also needs to be accessed easier. So this is where I see people need to get this kind of you need to, like I said, in between I said, right, you need to start wearing different hats at one point. So this could be a start where you get a little bit of information about everything. You need to know how to use, do a little bit of data warehousing. You need to know a little bit of, big data, or a little bit of visualization. Everyone needs to know a bit of everything, such that, you don't have to depend on somebody else for the information you need. So that's where we're all heading towards. Of course, experts are going to be there at different, but it's all based on how we learn, right? How we adapt. And, at some point, nobody was using, only IT professionals were using computers. But now every Tom, Dick, and Harry, every child, every person has to use the computer. So it's the technology pushes you towards that. So that's where we see ourselves going towards, actually.
But my question was, I mean, you got the background of the question, but then you went in a different direction. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
correct. Okay, so yes, we are all silos and we are trying to connect. That till that point, it's correct. But my question is, where is the market going towards? It's not, I'm not talking about the IT developers, what we need to do from a job perspective, or from those kind of things, but from a market perspective, what's the next trend for business intelligence as a whole? So where are we seeing ourselves in 10 years?
It's like I said, it's getting into more of handling the real-time data, and of course we're starting there. It's not there, but getting the automation part to a different level is where we are headed towards. So we are not there yet with at least the automation part. No, not there yet. It still has a lot of human involvement. I wouldn't say interference, right? Human involvement there. So automation is where we'll all head towards. That's not mastered yet. So that's what I see that, we will be going towards. So they're like automation of the entire process, at different stages, etc.
I thought you will touch upon a little bit about the machine learning aspects of it. So, but
Yes, automation, which includes that, right? So automation is nothing but the AI and the ML part of it. So when you talk about automation, it's underwritten statement that this is going to be underlying technology that's like AI or ML, which is, again, it's already there, because all your predictive and predictive modeling is like already ML. So it's doing these predictions based on some machine learning algorithms based on the previous data. So that's already there. So getting, making it much better, making it more, efficient automation is what we are looking at.
fair enough. Fair enough.
So, hey, I have one question. So, this is
Yes,
Pradeep
Pradeep,
here.
yes.
Yeah. So, I'm actually from BI background.
Okay.
I'm from MicroStrategy and Tableau Power BI. I just
All right. Okay.
kickstarted my career in Informatica.
Oh, okay, awesome.
So,
pretty much the whole package.
yeah, and done certification in data science as well.
Okay.
So, where do you see, say, I'm hoping you will get the idea like where I'm going. So where's the gist of that? So what's the next thing that is coming in? So pretty much I know like I'm in the current trend. So I'm going on the right track. I've been working in MicroStrategy for like 8 years now.
Okay.
Tableau, QuickSight, and Power BI as well.
Okay.
So what is the next step that is coming in that's going to hit us big?
Yes. So like I said, just answered, right? So the automation part of it, trying to automate the process by getting creating the right models and setting up, much. See, all these are, again, it is automated to an extent, but I think you need to start looking into that aspects of it. Now that you've already touched upon data science, so within data science, how much of data science have you done? There's so much analytics that is possible, and it's a huge process. If you look at the data science roadmap, there's NLP, there is
deep learning, neural
deep
networks.
learning. So many are there. So if you've already put dig your leg into it, so I think that's where you need to start acting upon it more and more.
Thanks, Sharanya.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Any more questions? Okay, so if there's no other questions, I give it back to Emily.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
All right, is that it? Okay, so I think she would be sharing more details about the course or anything else. I think she would contact you through WhatsApp or email, I think. All right. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. And I hope you have a good night and a very, very good long weekend. Thank you so much and take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Sure.